Yes, I know the guy on the cover looks like Pinhead. That's out of the way. We don't have to talk about it anymore. So the fifth to be released of Guinea Pig film also came out in 1988, and that was Android of Notre Dame, which when you get the unearthed box set or bootlegs like mine, it comes in a dual pack with the first film, Devil's Experiment. Why? I don't know. I mean, even when the title card comes up, it says Guinea Pig 2, which I don't understand. I do get that this was... I've even read somewhere that some people are convinced that this was the third film overall, which is very incorrect, but you know, it's not like Mermaid or Dr. Woman where there's confusion. This is the fifth film. So, the fifth to be produced and released. And unlike its predecessor, which was about a grieving, reclusive painter finding a mermaid who's sick, and he paints her portrait, her infection takes over, and the different colored pus that comes out he paints with until she dies. Even with how crazy that story kind of sounds, this story suffers dearly bad. The whole movie is bookended. Well, first off, it was directed by Kazuhito Kuramoto, and it's bookended by the main character, who is this Japanese dwarf who is very, very old. He's got all this makeup to look incredibly old. Pretty poor makeup. This is one of the most poor makeup effects, I'll say. Talking about life and time and creation. You know, that's beginning and the end. Basically like Inception. And no, just because it's similar, don't ask or say that Inception was inspired by this film, because I highly fucking doubt it. Then we flash back to when he was younger. He's a scientist whose sister is dying. He's conducting these experiments to either... It says to cure her, but as it goes on, as weird and pointless as the experiments are, you get the idea that maybe he's trying to prolong her life. And apparently it's some sort of heart ailment. I don't know all the details about the story of this film, even though I just got done rewatching it. Nor do I care. I'm not a fan of this movie at all. I wasn't years ago when I first saw these. He was buying these bodies at first through someone over the phone, transferring money, large sums of money. And, you know, he's a scientist, so what are his experiments? He just hooks up little clips with wires over random parts of her body, types loudly on a keyboard. That's his experiment. And then you see him, like, when it goes wrong, he has... Like, he takes the eyeball out, he cuts the tongue out. Those effects aren't bad, but the sound effects are terrible. Then he has this really long, like, temper tantrum where he's just stabbing the abdomen with a scalpel. You just hear him exhale. And the thuds. Eventually, the guy he was buying the bodies off of or whatever now wants to use him for extortion. Wants to blackmail him with extortion. And we don't ever really get an inclination as to, like, yes, when he's not in his lab, he's up in his sister's room, you know, taking care of her, feeding her, talking to her. But like the experiments he does, it's just like, how the hell are these supposed to do anything for a heart ailment? Unless some of the stuff he does is supposed to show that he kind of has a bit of a twisted side. He's just a mad scientist. The guy that's gonna try to extort money from him asked to be taken to his lab, and apparently he's got booby traps out there because this thing comes out and cuts him mid-shin off. And yeah, the stumps in the blood do look pretty fake. And the character's name is Kato. Whoever played him, he was awful. I mean, he was probably the best actor in the movie, but he is doing a lot of overacting. I mean, like, he never dies overacting, just like... And then, of course, the main character does his maniacal evil doctor laugh, which was kind of cringy because it wasn't that well done. And when he wakes up, he's just a head on a table, all white, with symmetrical lines. Yes, looks like Pinhead. Yes, a year after Hellraiser came out. Do I think it was an inspiration? No. I'm sure there was a reason. A lot of people like to think that because two things, even very far apart, have the tiniest similarities, that it was an inspiration of, or ripped off, or based on. No, I think there's just some likely thinking going on in the world. I know, I'm trying not to scratch myself, but my sunburns are now starting to dry up, and I'm itchy as fuck. Have been all day. And he talks about how he, like, reprogrammed his memory. He's going to give him a new memory. When he shows him his reflection, he's doing... So yeah, still overacting. Somehow vomits green stuff, which, if he's just a head, I don't know how that happens. And then it's like he's going to try to put his sister's memory into him. And there's like these android arms that he's trying to connect to him. So then it's like, okay, he's going to try to prolong her life by preserving her, I guess, memory and subconscious into this android thing. There's even a scene when he brings her down there and she, like, touches his face and he keeps, like, shaking, convulsing, and coughing up blood. Oh, and every time we see him, he's more and more deteriorated. Like, first time we see him is like perfect face, just white with lines. And he keeps getting, like, at one point he just cuts his ear off. It gets more and more, like, droopy and rotting. To the point where, by the end, he almost looks like someone trying to recreate Tom Savini's Cropsy. Like, the nose has, like, that Cropsy nose. And while she's touching its face, the hand comes up, starts to strangle her. The ending was kind of confusing because somehow she died, I'm guessing from being strangled or the whole thing falling over, which he's just a head, yet when the table falls over, his head is still, like, hanging on sideways and his eyeball just falls out for some reason. So then the scientist goes to cut her heart out, but he breaks her ribs out first. No blood. And this is where the effects are really terrible. The camera's, like, up here looking down while he's cutting down. And the skin is, like, as he's cutting, it's like the skin's getting, like pushed up like this. It looks like latex or rubber. There's no blood. Even when he cuts through and you can see like the layer of like skin color latex or whatever it is. No blood. He reaches in, pulls out a couple ribs. And instead of blood, there's just this really pink, translucent fluid. Goopy, syrupy fluid. KY jelly. I will say the sound effects, which sounds very similar to Flowers of Flesh and Blood, cutting through the bone. Pretty horrific sound effects when you put it to ribs. I've got to find out he's basically just doing a heart transplant. All those weird-ass experiments where it's just like, what the fuck? And then by the time he gets to the android, which, what is... The so-called android is barely even started. It's just like a head with a new memory and arms that he's barely connected to. Notre Dame, does he end up going to Notre Dame? I never got an inclination that this took place there. It still felt like they were still in Japan. But at the end, beginning and the end, when he's an old man, he's like in a church, this big sort of church. So maybe he went there after. I don't fucking know. I really don't care. You don't have to tell me. Not to come off as rude, but I just... Usually when I say I don't know, it's because I don't give a shit. You know, if I'm really curious, I'll be like, hey, you know... I'm sure people will let me know in the comments, but... You know, I don't give a shit about this film. But yeah, so just a heart transplant. Then it ends with him, like the Inception ending with the old man. And yes, I know someone will bring it up to me. Inception ends with the totem spinning. I get that. But I mean the whole beginning and ending sequence. And he's holding like a braid, and he talks about how his life had been prolonged so long. Talks about how he created God, the devil, himself. It's about his heart still beat, you know, bell still tolls for his sister's death. I mean, this movie's biggest flaw, even more so than the over-the-top, bad, almost even non-existent at best acting, is the storytelling. It's just, okay, so she has some sort of heart ailment. I get you don't have to tell what it is. It's not really a detriment. But just the point of his experiments, what his ultimate goal is, having the head with an android, like, I'm guessing he just wants to prolong her life after death instead of actually curing her. And using all these guinea pigs, I guess, making it more relevant to guinea pig since the first two films. You know, the story is just very half-written. Half-written, feels unfinished, or just kind of, fuck it. Yeah, I'm not a fan of this. The effects so far are the worst. I'll even say He Never Dies has much better effects than this. I mean, the scenes where if he's cutting off like an ear, pulling out the eyeball was kind of or cutting the tongue out of someone, like, those were kind of fine. But like cutting his sister open, that alone with the latex kind of like riding up, looked very fake. In fact, there was no blood, just this KY jelly looking shit with pulling ribs out. Just even sheer volume of the gore that's in it. I mean, yeah, Devil's Experiment has very little, save for maybe the burns when they throw guts on her and I guess the very end with the needle. So yeah, volume, it's not the lowest, but it feels the lowest just because it's not really there, and when it is there, it's very underwhelming. It's a very poor excuse for a guinea pig film, I could say that. But yeah, not a fan of this film. Really don't give a shit about it or anything I missed. Got one more left. All right. And again, if you're interested in the American Guinea Pig series, because I haven't seen them yet, I don't own them. But my friend, the Explorer of Horror, the Horror Boy, he's done at least the first one. I don't know if he's going to do any more, but go check out his review. American Guinea Pig. I think it's called Bouquet of Blood and Guts or something like that. But, yeah. Guinea Pig 5, Android in Notre Dame. Pretty shitty film. Thanks for watching.